Okay, there's 6 cups total and a little cup for white highlights at the end. I put the 2 blacks a little separated by themselves just so I know exactly where the gray starts. You don't have to, you know, it's just a habit I formed. But the first cup is dimension black, the second cup is sculpting black, third cup is dark tone, fourth cup is medium tone, fifth cup is light tone, and the sixth cup is miracle water, which you can get through Intense. It doesn't come in my set, so you can get that separately. If you find yourself without miracle water, you can use distilled water. You know, it works really similar. So the Dimension Black I use usually just for the blackest blacks in the tattoo. And then the Sculpting Black, I'll start using Sculpting Black before I start with the gray tones. If it's a really black area that's going to blend into a gray tone, that's where I start with the Sculpting Black, and then from there I move into the grays. So sometimes with the Dimension Black, if it's an area where I'm going to blend from a real black into gray tones, I may start with the Dimension Black, wisp it out and soften it up, and then I come in with the Sculpting Black over that and kind of bring the Sculpting Black off the Dimension Black, and then from there I go into the light tones, so on and so on. Alright, I'm about to start this Boris Karloff as Frankenstein's monster piece. A lot of people call him Frankenstein, but he's actually Dr. Frankenstein's creation, so he's Frankenstein's monster. His name isn't Frankenstein. Anyway, that's not important. So we're going to do this Boris Karloff portrait from Frankenstein, the movie Frankenstein, classic, one of my favorites. Came out in 1931, some useless trivia for you horror fans. Okay, since I'm left-handed, I'm going to start on the left side, just out of habit. I'm going to start from the bottom, because I try to work from the bottom, wipe away from the stencil, so I don't wipe the stencil off as I'm working. If I started on top and I'm wiping, the stencil would wipe off pretty quick and I'd be screwed. So something Tom Renshaw taught me when I started doing portraits. So I'm going to start from the bottom on the left side. I'm going to start working on his coat here. So I'm going to jump in with my dark gray tone. And of my grays, the dark gray is pretty dark. If you packed it in, it could almost be black. So the way I work, I do a lot more brushing than packing it in with circular motions. So I start right in, just kind of brushing it in. And then you can kind of ease it in and see how dark it's going to look without going in too dark right off the bat. But the gray tone, it's a really rich, dark gray, but it is really dark. So the way I put it in, I'm kind of finessing it in. I'm not packing it in real hard, which is really the way I do 90% of my tattoos. The only time I'm doing a circular oval hand motion is when I'm packing black. But all the gray stuff, I'm really brushing either back and forth, or I'm just, I call it a backstroke, where I'm just kind of one stroke at a time brushing it in. Now this area I'm working on, it's almost black, so I'm actually going to dip into my Sculpting Black. And I'm going to dip into the Sculpting Black and the dark tone equally at the same time. So I'm kind of getting somewhere in between those two. And that's one thing about the set is half the time you're dipping into 2 cups at the same time. You can't just dip into 1 cup and then go, okay, I'm going into the next value of gray, just move on to the next cup. there's those in-between values, like in between the dark and medium. I'm going to dip into both those cups at the same time if I'm easing in from a dark to a medium. That way you get a totally smooth transition. You know, if I just went from dark, then medium, you could almost see it in the skin where you went from dark to medium. So it's really important to always dip into 2 cups at the same time as you're going between values. But a lot of times I know which value I'm going for. I know what it looks like, so I just jump into the medium tone. I'm doing an area that calls for the medium tone. So there's really no, I don't have a completely set method. I don't work from dark to light. I just kind of work from the bottom up in whatever tone it calls for. I finish an area. Sometimes I'm working light first and then the dark area. Sometimes I'm working dark and then light. There's no set method. Every tattoo is different. I'm dipping straight into the sculpting black now to hit the edge of this collar, which is black. But it's not as black as some other areas in the tattoo, so I'm saving that for the dimension black for those really black areas. So now I'm using just my dark tone.
Andre, you bringing your Karen or what?
What needle grouping are you using, Bob?
I'm using a 7 mag. I use a number 10 gauge. It's a bug pin type needle. So I put a 7 mag in a 5 mag tube. And I do the whole tattoo like this, I'll do the whole thing like that. Because I can get into tight little areas with it. I'll do 98% of the tattoo with this one needle. I can get into tight areas, and I can also do big areas and, you know, nice smooth shading throughout. So it's a really, really versatile needle. I started with 7 mags when I started, and just kind of stayed with them and got used to them. So this is dark tone still. It looks almost black, but it heals into a nice, real dark gray. And then I'm going to kind of blend it out. Still just dimension black, sort of just soften it up and just wisp it out a little bit. Dimension black to define the edge of this collar. Now I'm going to go into a straight medium gray, the medium tone, and then fill in most of this collar here. And kind of brush it in, and then I'll go over it a few times. When you work this way, you're not damaging the skin because you're kind of finessing it in, and you're not overworking the skin too quickly, and so you have room to build it up, and then you can kind of see how dark. It's good. It's a good way to build up to the dark value you want without putting it in too quickly and then realize you went too dark.